The Grand Council chamber stretched so wide that the far walls disappeared into shadow. 1,000 different species filled the vast space, each delegate sitting in seats designed for their particular body shape. Some breathed oxygen, others methane, some had scales, others had fur or skin or something else entirely. They all shared one thing in common today: they were here to witness history. Emperor Vorthon stood at the center platform, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of dominance. His purple skin seemed to glow under the chamber lights. Behind him, holographic displays showed star maps of the galaxy, with the Zaxarian Empire marked in deep red. It covered nearly half of known space. 3,000 years, Vorthon's voice boomed through translation devices. For 3,000 years, the Zaxarian Empire has brought order to chaos. We have united species. We have ended wars. We have built peace through strength. Delegates listened in silence. Most had heard this speech before, or versions of it. The Empire was indeed powerful. No one questioned that. But now Vorthon continued, a new species threatens our stability. They call themselves humans. They occupy a sector rich in rare minerals and strategic hyperspace routes. We offered them membership in our empire. They refused. We offered them trade agreements. They refused. We offered them protection. They refused. A murmur went through the crowd. Refusing the empire was not done. It was dangerous. It was foolish. Therefore, Vorin raised all 4 arms high. I declare war on the human species. Their home world called Earth will be occupied. Within 10 cycles, their surrender is not negotiable. Their submission is not optional. This is the will of the empire. The chamber erupted in a mixture of approval and concern. Some species cheered, seeing opportunity in a new conquest. Others worried, remembering their own first contact with the empire. It had not been pleasant. In the 3rd row of the human delegation section, Daniel Hayes sat perfectly still. He was a middle-aged man with gray starting to show in his dark hair. He wore a simple suit, nothing fancy. Next to him, his assistant, Claire Rodriguez, gripped her data pad so hard her knuckles turned white. Ambassador, she whispered, we need to respond. We need to say something. Daniel held up one finger. Wait. Emperor Vorthon was still speaking. The humans have 10 cycles to surrender unconditionally. If they refuse, our fleet will reduce their cities to ash. Their military will be destroyed. Their people will learn the price of defying the empire. That's when Daniel Hayes laughed. It wasn't a small laugh. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was a genuine, amused laugh that echoed through the sudden silence of the chamber. 1,000 heads turned to look at him. Emperor Vorthon stopped mid-sentence, his expression shifting from triumph to confusion to anger. Daniel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper, printed on real paper. The pages rustled as he unfolded it. In an age of holographic displays and neural interfaces, the sound was almost prehistoric. He began to read. Chamber went completely silent. No one moved, no one spoke. They all watched as the human ambassador sat there reading newspaper while an emperor who controlled half the galaxy stared at him in disbelief. What is the meaning of this? Vorin's voice shook with rage. You dare show such disrespect? Daniel finished the paragraph he was reading, then looked up calmly. Sorry. Just wanted to catch the score. My Daughter's baseball team had their championship game yesterday. They won. By the way, I'm very proud. You laugh at the Empire's declaration of war. Vorthon's skin was turning a darker shade of purple. You mock the greatest military force in the galaxy. Oh no. Daniel said, folding his newspaper neatly. I wasn't laughing at your declaration. I just read something funny. In the sports section, the columnist made a joke about the umpire's eyesight. It was pretty good. The delegates were stunned. Some of the older species, the ones who had been around long enough to see empires rise and fall, looked at Daniel with new interest. This wasn't fear. This wasn't even concern. This was something else. Ambassador Hayes, the council speaker, a floating jellyfish-like creature, spoke gently. The Emperor has declared war on your species. Do you understand the gravity of this situation? I do, Daniel said. Standing up, he tucked the newspaper under his arm, which is why I'd like to respond if the Emperor is finished. Vorthon gestured sharply. Speak, beg for mercy, plead for more time. It will not matter. Daniel walked down to the center platform. His steps echoed in the silent chamber. He looked around at all the delegates, at all the species watching him, and then he looked directly at Emperor Vorthon. On behalf of humanity, Daniel said clearly, we acknowledge your declaration of war. We accept it. Our military command will contact you within the next few hours to discuss the terms of your surrender. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates shouted in 100 languages. Emperor Vorthon's guards moved forward, hands on weapons. Council speaker was calling for order. But no one was listening. Daniel turned and walked toward the exit. Claire scrambled to follow him, her eyes wide. Ambassador, what are you doing? They're going to kill us. No, they're not. Daniel said calmly. They're going to think very hard about what just happened, and then they're going to make some phone calls, and then they're going to start to worry. He paused at the chamber door and looked back. Emperor Voron was still standing on the platform, surrounded by advisors. Daniel set his newspaper down on a nearby seat, carefully positioned so the back page was visible. Claire glanced at it as they left. There was a date printed at the bottom. Her breath caught. The date was 3 weeks in the future. How is that possible? She whispered as they walked through the corridor. It's not, Daniel said. That's the point. Let them figure out what it means. Behind them, the chaos continued. The first delegates were starting to notice the newspaper, the date, the impossibility of it. And slowly, very slowly, some of them began to feel the first cold touch of fear. The Zaxarian Empire had just declared war on humanity. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know yet, was that humanity had been ready for this moment for a very long time. And Daniel Hayes, reading his newspaper and laughing at sports jokes, had just fired the first shot in a war that would change the galaxy forever. The question wasn't whether humanity would win. The question was what the galaxy would look like when the truth finally came out. The orbital defense station hung above Earth like a silver ring. Inside the command center, Admiral Kate Morrison stood in front of a wall of displays showing real-time data from across the solar system. She was a tall woman with short blonde hair and calm gray eyes that had seen too much to be easily surprised. The message from the Zaxarian Empire appeared on her main screen. Declaration of war. Demand for surrender 10 cycles. To comply. Kate read it once, then sighed and rubbed her temples. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Gary Phillips looked up from his station. "Orders." "Activate Protocol 17, Kate said. Quietly, the command center went silent. Officers exchanged glances. Protocol 17 hadn't been used in 200 years. Some of the younger crew members didn't even know what it meant. "Are you sure?" Captain Ryan Cooper asked. He was standing near the tactical display, his hand resting on the console. "Once we activate it, there's no going back. They declared war, Ryan. They made the choice." Kate pulled up her command authorization and entered her code. Time to stop pretending. Across the room, different stations began lighting up with new data. Communication channels that had been dormant for centuries suddenly activated. Star maps expanded, showing regions of space that hadn't been on any official charts. And slowly, the truth began to reveal itself. Earth was not humanity's only world. It wasn't even humanity's main world anymore. Kate walked over to the historical display and activated it. Images began to appear in the air showing Earth's past, cities burning, mushroom clouds rising, oceans boiling, the horror of what humans had done to themselves 300 years ago. "Listen up," Kate said, her voice carrying to every station. "Most of you know the story we tell outsiders. Humans evolved on Earth, developed space travel about 100 years ago, and we're still learning. That's what the Zaxarians believe. That's what most of the galaxy believes." She changed the display. New images appeared, massive space stations in hidden star systems, entire planets covered in cities that made Earth's largest metropolis look like a small town, ships that dwarf anything the Zagarians had ever built. "The truth is different. 300 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We had wars that killed billions. We developed weapons that could crack planets. We were days away from total extinction. When the survivors finally stopped fighting long enough to think, the crew watched in silence. Even those who knew the story had never seen these images. This was classified history, kept secret from the galaxy. The survivors made choice. They decided that Earth would become a memorial, a reminder of what happens when species get too proud, too violent, too certain they're right. They rebuilt, but not here. They went to other systems, hidden systems, and they started over. Kate changed the display again. Now it showed a network of stars connected by lines, hundreds of them. For 300 years, humanity has been building in secret. We spread to 400 systems. We developed technology that makes the Zaxarians look primitive. We created an entire civilization that the galaxy doesn't know exists. But why? Gary asked. Why hide? Why not show everyone what we can do? Because we learned something important, Kate said. Power doesn't make you right. It just makes you powerful. We watched other species in the galaxy. We saw empires rise and fall. We saw wars and conquests, and we decided to wait to watch to see if anyone out there was worth meeting as equals. Ryan stepped forward, and the people on Earth, the ones the Zaxarians met, volunteers, people who wanted to live a simpler life. They maintained the illusion. They play the role of a young developing species. Meanwhile, the rest of humanity watches from the shadows. Kate pulled up a new display showing 50 ships in orbit around Earth. They looked old compared to Zaxarian vessels, simple, almost primitive. These are museum pieces by our standards, she said. Ships we built 100 years ago, but they're still more advanced than anything the Empire has. We keep them here as a defense force. Just in case someone declares war on a museum, Ryan said with a slight smile. Exactly. Kate turned to face her crew. The Zaxarian fleet will arrive in about 6 hours, 5,000 ships. The largest armada they've ever assembled. They think they're going to conquer a primitive species. What are our orders? Gary asked. We teach them a lesson, but we do it carefully. We disable their ships. We don't destroy them. We show them they can't win, but we don't kill unless we have to. We're not the monsters we used to be. Kate activated the communication system across human space in 400 hidden star systems. Military command centers received the same message. Protocol 17 was active. The secret was about to come out. Ryan, you'll command the defense fleet. Lisa Grant will be your tactical officer. Your job is to stop the Zaxarian fleet without destroying it. Make it clear, make it obvious, but leave them alive to spread the word. Ryan saluted. Understood. What about Ambassador Hayes? Daniel is handling the political side. He's going to visit the Emperor personally while we show them what our museum pieces can do. He'll show them what we've been hiding. Lisa, a young woman with red hair and sharp green eyes, looked nervous. Admiral, what if they don't believe us? What if they keep fighting? Kate smiled sadly. Then we'll have to show them more, and trust me, Lieutenant, they really don't want us to show them more. The displays around the command center continued to update. Hidden human fleets were moving into position, not to attack, not to invade, just to watch, to be ready if the Zaxarians made the wrong choice. 300 years ago, Kate said quietly, humanity learned the hardest lesson any species can learn. We learned what happens when you think violence is the answer to everything. We learned what it costs to be wrong. And we decided never to make that mistake again. She looked at her crew, at the young faces and the old, at the people who had trained their whole lives for a moment that they hoped would never come. But we also learned something else. We learned that sometimes you have to show strength to achieve peace. Zaxarians declared war because they thought we were weak. They thought we were easy prey. Now we're going to show them the truth. Not to conquer them, not to destroy them, but to make them understand that war is not the answer. Ryan checked his tactical display. Zaxarian fleet will arrive in 5 hours and 42 minutes. Then we have time for coffee. Kate said, make it strong. It's going to be a long day. As the crew returned to their stations, preparing for the battle to come, Earth turned slowly beneath them. Cities lit up in the night, oceans reflected starlight, forests and mountains and deserts, all preserved as they had been for centuries, a memorial to what was lost, a promise to never forget. Somewhere in the hidden systems, the real human civilization continued its daily life. Billions of people who had never seen Earth, who knew it only as a story, a warning, a reminder. They went about their business, raising children and building futures, trusting that the secret would hold. But today, the secret was ending. Today the galaxy would learn that humanity was not what it seemed, and nothing would ever be the same again. Kate looked out at the stars and wondered what the Zaxarians would do when they learned the truth. Would they choose wisdom, or would they choose Pride in a few hours she would have. Her answer, the Zaxarian war fleet, emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metal locusts, 5,000 ships ranging from small destroyers to massive battle cruisers. They filled the space around Earth's solar system, blocking out stars. With their sheer numbers, fleet Commander Zethor sat on his command throne, watching the tactical displays with satisfaction. His ship, the Eternal Victory, was the largest vessel in the fleet. It carried enough firepower to glass a planet around him. His officers worked efficiently at their stations. Report, Zethor commanded. All ships in position, Commander. His tactical officer said, we detect 50 human vessels in orbit around their home world. Scans show they are outdated designs. Weapons are primitive. Shields are minimal. Jor's mandibles clicked in amusement. 50 ships against 5,000. Either they are brave or foolish. Probably foolish, his second-in-command said. Their technology is at least a century behind ours. Open a communication channel to the human fleet. On the bridge of the New Jersey, Captain Ryan Cooper received the incoming transmission. He sat in his command chair, looking relaxed. Around him, his crew worked quietly. Lisa Grant stood at the tactical station, her fingers dancing over the controls. Put him on screen, Ryan said. Jor's image appeared. He was tall with purple skin and 4 arms. His eyes were cold. Human vessels. This is Fleet Commander X-Thor of the Zaxarian Empire. You are vastly outnumbered. Surrender immediately, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make your world burn. Ryan smiled. Commander ZH Thor, this is Captain Ryan Cooper. Before we begin, I'd like to share some information with you. There is nothing to discuss. Surrender or die, I insist. Ryan nodded to Lisa, who sent a data packet to the Zaxarian flagship. Zethor's expression changed as he read the incoming data. His officers began speaking urgently. The bridge of the Eternal Victory erupted in confused voices. How did you get this? Zethor demanded. Get what? Ryan asked innocently. The current positions of all 5,000 of your ships, or the decoded version of your military communication protocols. Or maybe you're surprised about the Emperor's breakfast menu from this morning. He had the Keldar eggs. By the way, good choice. Zethor's skin turned darker. Impossible. Our encryption is unbreakable. Our ship positions are constantly changing, and yet here we are. Ryan leaned forward. Commander, you're making a mistake. You can still turn around. No one has to die today. You dare threaten the Empire? Zor roared. All ships open fire. Destroy them. The space around Earth lit up as 5,000 ships fired their weapons, plasma beams, missiles, energy torpedoes, all converging on the 50 human vessels. On the New Jersey, alarms didn't even sound. Lisa watched her tactical display calmly. Incoming fire. Time to impact, 5 seconds. Defensive measures, Ryan said quietly. The human ships didn't activate shields. They didn't need to. Instead, they simply moved, not with thrusters or engines. Any conventional sense. One moment they were in one position, the next they were somewhere else entirely. The Zaxarian weapons hit empty space. What? Zethor stared at his displays. Where did they go? All ships, his tactical officer reported. No hits. Human vessels have relocated. They're now scattered throughout our formation. How did they move so fast? That's impossible. On the New Jersey, Ryan checked his displays. Lisa, show them what we can do. Education mode, target their weapons and engines only. Leave life support intact. Understood. Captain engaging. The 50 human ships opened fire, but they didn't use the massive destructive weapons that the Zaxarians expected. Instead, they used precision, perfect, calculated precision. Each shot from a human ship hit exactly where it was aimed. A weapons array here, an engine system there, a communication relay, shield generator. The Zaxarian ships didn't explode. They didn't burn, they just stopped working. Sir, we've lost weapons control, an officer on the Eternal Victory shouted. Engines are offline, shields are down. Around them, the same reports came from every ship in the fleet. One by one, the 5,000 vessels of the Zaxarian armada went dark. Not destroyed, not damaged. Beyond repair, just disabled, perfectly, precisely, surgically disabled. Zethor watched in horror as his entire fleet was reduced to floating scrap in 15 minutes. Not a single human ship showed any damage, not one. Ryan opened a communication channel. His face appeared on every screen in every Zaxarian ship. Fleet Commander Zalthar, this is your only warning. We have disabled your fleet. Your crews are safe. Your ships can be repaired. But you need to understand something very important. Zor said nothing. He couldn't. His mind was trying to process what had just happened. We didn't use a real military for this, Ryan continued. These ships you just fought, they're museum pieces. They're old designs we keep around Earth for sentimental reasons. Our actual military is much, much more advanced. That's not possible, Zor whispered. It is. And you need to leave now. Repair your ships. Go home. Tell your emperor what happened here. Tell him that humanity is not what he thinks, and tell him that Ambassador Hayes is on his way to explain everything. Ryan cut the transmission. Around Earth, the 50 human ships remained in position, waiting. Zaxarian fleet floated helplessly, their crews alive but their pride shattered. Meanwhile, a small human shuttle entered hyperspace, heading for the Zaxarian home world. Inside, Daniel Hayes sat reading his newspaper. Across from him, Claire Rodriguez was pale. We just humiliated the most powerful empire in the galaxy, she said. They're not going to forgive this. They don't need to forgive it, Daniel said, turning a page. They need to understand it. That's different, and if they don't. Daniel looked up at her. His eyes were kind but serious. Then we'll show them more, but I don't think it will come to that. The commander of that fleet isn't stupid. He's going to think about what just happened. He's going to wonder how we moved so fast, how we aimed so perfectly, how we knew everything about his fleet before he even arrived, and what will he conclude? That we've been holding back, that we're much more dangerous than he imagined, and that maybe, just maybe, he should listen to what we have to say. The shuttle continued through hyperspace. Behind them, the Zaxarian fleet began the slow process of repairs. Some ships were already recovering engine power. In a few hours they would limp home, defeated without a single casualty. On the Eternal Victory, Zethor sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. His officers worked in silence. No one wanted to speak. No one knew what to say. Finally, Zethor spoke. Send a message to the Emperor. Tell him We failed. Tell him the humans are not what we thought. Tell him everything. And what are they, Commander? His second in command asked quietly. Zethor looked at the space where the human ships had been, the ships that had moved faster than his sensors could track, that had shot with accuracy that shouldn't be possible, that had defeated his entire fleet without breaking a sweat. I don't know, he said, but I don't think we want to find out. In the distance, Earth continued to turn, a blue and green world, peaceful and quiet. Museum, a memorial, a reminder of what humans had been, and a warning of what they had become. The first battle was over. The real war, the war for understanding, was just beginning. The Imperial throne room was designed to intimidate. Massive pillars reached toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Banners from 1,000 conquered worlds hung from the walls. Emperor Voron sat on a throne carved from a single piece of black crystal, elevated so high that visitors had to look up at him. Daniel Hayes walked across the polished floor without hesitation. His footsteps echoed in the vast space behind him. Claire Rodriguez carried a simple briefcase. They were the only humans in a room full of Zaxarian guards and advisors. You have courage, I'll give you that, Vorthon said. His voice was cold. Coming here alone after humiliating my fleet. I'm not alone, Daniel said. I have Claire with me, and I brought something for you. He gestured to Claire, who opened the briefcase. Inside was the newspaper, the same one Daniel had been reading in the council chamber. She placed it carefully on a table near the throne. A paper newspaper, Vorthon said. How quaint is this supposed to impress me? Look at the date, Daniel said. One of the advisors picked up the paper and examined it. His expression changed. My lord, this date is from 3 weeks in the future. It's impossible. Nothing is impossible, Daniel said. Just improbable. That paper was printed before your fleet even left for Earth. It describes the battle that just happened, every detail, every ship disabled, every shot fired, all of it written before it occurred. You're claiming you can see the future, Vorthon laughed, but it sounded forced. No, we're claiming we're very good at predicting outcomes because we've been watching you for a very, very long time. Daniel opened the briefcase again and removed a data storage device. May I use your display system? Vorhan waved a hand. Show us your tricks, human. The room's holographic system activated. Images began to appear in the air above them. Old images, ancient images, pictures of Earth from 300 years ago. This is what humanity looked like, Daniel said. Beautiful cities, advanced technology, 7 billion people living in relative peace. And then we made a mistake. We thought we were strong enough to survive a war. We were wrong. The images changed, cities burning, mushroom clouds rising, entire continents turned to wasteland. The advisors watched in silence. Even Vorthon leaned forward. We nearly destroyed ourselves. 90% of our population died in 3 years. Survivors were scattered, desperate, and carrying weapons that could crack planets. We were days away from extinction when something changed. Daniel paused, letting the images sink in. The survivors stopped fighting long enough to ask a question. Why were we so eager to destroy each other? Why did we think violence was the answer? And they realized something important. Power without wisdom is just destruction. New images appeared, ships leaving Earth, colonies in hidden System slowly rebuilding civilization. The survivors made a choice. They decided Earth would remain as a memorial, a reminder of our mistake, and they went elsewhere to rebuild, to grow, to learn. For 300 years, Forthon asked quietly. For 300 years, we spread to 400-star systems. We developed technology that makes yours look primitive. We created an entire civilization that the galaxy doesn't know exists, and we watched empires rise and fall. We watched species discover space travel and make the same mistakes we made, and we waited for what? An advisor. Asked to see if anyone out there was worth meeting as equals. A new hologram appeared in the room. It was a man in military uniform standing in what looked like a command center. But the technology visible behind him was far beyond anything the Zaxarians had. Emperor Voron, the man said, "I'm General Paul Martinez, commander of the Human Defense Force. What you're seeing right now is a live transmission from our main command center located in a star system your maps don't show." Forthon stood up. "This is a trick, is it?" Paul smiled. "Let me prove otherwise. Currently, you have 217 ships in orbit around your home world, 43 military installations on the surface. Your breakfast this morning consisted of Keldar eggs and fresh fruit. You had a meeting with your war council at the third hour where you discussed sending a second fleet to Earth." Forthon's skin turned pale. "How do you know this?" "Because we've been watching you since before you discovered space travel. We've monitored every transmission, mapped every installation, studied every aspect of your empire, not because we wanted to conquer you, because we wanted to know if you were a threat to others." More images appeared, real-time surveillance footage from inside the Imperial Palace, quantum level communication intercepts from Zaxarian military installations, complete maps of every Zaxarian ship in space, updated to the second. "This isn't possible," an advisor whispered. "It's very possible," Daniel said. "This is what 300 years of secret development looks like. This is what happens when a species learns from its mistakes." Another hologram appeared. Woman with short black hair and intense brown eyes. "I'm Commander Helen Brooks, head of Human Intelligence Services. I've personally read every message your Emperor has sent in the last 5 years. I know the names of his children. I know his favorite foods. I know his fears and his ambitions, not because we're enemies, because we needed to understand what kind of leader he is." Vorthon slowly sat back down. His advisors looked at each other, fear evident in their expressions. "Why are you telling us this?" Voron asked. "If you're so powerful, why not just destroy us?" "Because we learned that lesson already," Daniel said. "We learned it the hard way at the cost of billions of lives. Power doesn't make you right, it just makes you powerful. And using that power to destroy others just makes you a monster." He walked closer to the throne, looking up at the Emperor. 300 years ago, humanity stood where you stand now. We had the power to destroy our enemies. We thought that made us strong, but it just made us dead, and the few who survived had to live with the knowledge that they had destroyed their own world. "So what do you want?" Vorthon asked. "We want to give you a choice. You can continue this war against an enemy you cannot defeat. You can send more fleets and we'll disable them too. You can try to attack our Hidden systems, but you don't know where they are. You can continue down the path of empire and conquest until someone or something stops you. Daniel paused. Or you can choose differently. You can choose peace, not surrender. Peace. You can join the real galactic community. What real community? An advisor demanded. We are the galactic community. We control half of known space. Helen's hologram smiled. You control half of the space you know. About the other half, that's where we live, along with 73 other species who chose cooperation over conquest. Species you think are extinct or primitive or too weak to matter, they've all been living in the same hidden sectors we have, building something better than empires. More images appeared, space stations the size of moons, ships that dwarfed the largest Zaxarian battle cruiser, planets covered in cities, but cities that lived in harmony with nature, technology that seemed like magic. This is what the galaxy could be, Paul said, not empires crushing weaker species, not wars over resources and territory, but cooperation, exchange, ideas, real progress. Vorthon was silent for a long time. Finally he spoke. And if I refuse, if I choose to continue the empire's path, then you'll lose. Daniel said simply, not today, not tomorrow, but eventually, because empires always fall. The question is whether they fall with grace or with blood. You're asking me to give up everything my people have built. No, I'm asking you to transform it into something better. The Zaxarian people are not evil. Your technology is impressive. Your culture is rich. History is proud, but your methods, those need to change. Daniel placed his hand on the newspaper. This paper is from the future because we calculated what would happen. We knew you'd declare war. We knew your fleet would fail. We knew you'd be sitting here right now trying to decide what to do next. We know this because we've seen it before. We've lived it ourselves. And what did you decide? Foreign asked quietly. When you were in my position, we decided to survive. We decided to learn. We decided that being strong meant knowing when not to fight. And we decided that the only victory worth having is the one where everybody lives to see tomorrow. The throne room was silent. Outside, the planet continued its daily life, unaware that its emperor was deciding the future of their entire civilization. Finally, Voron stood. I need to discuss this with my council alone. Take your time, Daniel said. We've waited 300 years. We can wait a little longer. As the humans left the throne room, Claire whispered, do you think he'll choose peace? Daniel looked back at the massive doors closing behind them. He's smart, he's proud, but he's not stupid. He'll make the right choice, and if he doesn't, then we'll show him more. But I don't think it will come to that. Fear is a powerful teacher, and right now he's very afraid. The Imperial War Council gathered in a secure chamber deep beneath the palace. 20 advisors, 5 military commanders, and Emperor Vorthon himself. The holographic display showed everything the humans had revealed, playing over and over: ship movements, communication intercepts, technology that shouldn't exist. This is a trick, General Corvan insisted. Humans cannot be this advanced. It's impossible. We saw the battle recordings, Admiral Venthar countered. Our entire fleet disabled in 15 minutes. Precision shots, perfect accuracy. That's not a trick. That's real capability. Then we send a larger fleet, 10,000 Ships 20,000, we overwhelm them with numbers and they disable those too, the High Counselor Kraven said quietly. She was ancient even by Zaxarian standards. Her skin had faded to pale lavender with age. Did you not hear what they said? Those ships at Earth are museum pieces, old technology they keep for sentimental reasons. Their real military is far more advanced. Then what do you suggest? Forthon demanded that we surrender to these humans who came from nowhere. I suggest we think Kraven said they could have destroyed our fleet. They chose not to. They could have killed our crews. They left them alive. They could have invaded our worlds. Instead, they sent an ambassador with a newspaper and a history lesson. Why? The room was silent. Because they're not interested in conquest, Karen continued. They're interested in something else. They want us to change, and they're powerful enough to make us change, but wise enough to give us the choice. Vorin said bitterly. Change or be destroyed. Some choice. Better than no choice at all, Crayon said, which is what we gave to the 70 species we conquered over the last 1,000 years. Vorton looked at his old advisor. You think we should accept their offer? I think we should survive. Everything else is negotiable. The debate continued for hours. Some advisors argued for continued war. Others argued for peace. Military commanders presented battle plans that all ended with the same conclusion: probable defeat. Scientists examined the human technology displays and admitted they had no idea how most of it worked. Finally, as the planet's sun set outside, Vorin called for a vote. 10 voted for continued war. 10 voted for peace. The decision fell to the Emperor himself. Vorin stood and walked to the window. His empire stretched across half the known galaxy. Billions of beings lived under Zaxarian rule. Thousands of years of history, all of it built on strength and conquest. Could he really give that up? But then he thought about the humans, about how they had laughed and read newspapers while he declared war, about how they had disabled his fleet without casualties, about how they had known everything before it happened. And he realized something important. They weren't threatening him because they wanted his empire. They were threatening him because they didn't want to have to destroy it. I choose peace, Vorthon said finally. Send word to Ambassador Hayes. Tell him we accept his offer. Tell him we want to learn about this hidden community. Tell him the Empire is willing to change. 3 months later, the Grand Council chamber looked very different. Where once there had been 1,000 delegates, now there were 300 more. Species the Zaxarians had thought extinct stood among them. Species they had never heard of. Species they had dismissed as primitive or unimportant. Daniel Hayes stood at the center platform again, but this time Vorthon stood beside him, not as enemies, not even as allies yet, but as two leaders trying to build something new. The Galactic Coalition, Daniel announced, is not an empire. It's not a democracy. It's not a single government at all. It's a community of species who have chosen cooperation over conquest, trade over war, understanding over fear. The chamber listened. Some delegates were excited, others were skeptical, but they all listened. The Zaxarian Empire will not disappear, Daniel continued. Its people will not be conquered. Its culture will not be erased, but it will transform from an empire to a coalition. Member, from conquerors to partners. Admiral Kate Morrison stood in the observation gallery watching the proceedings. Next to her, Ryan Cooper smiled. "We did it. We actually did it. We did the easy part," Kate said. "The hard part is making it last." Below them, Vorthon addressed the assembly. "I was wrong," he said simply. "I thought strength meant conquest. I thought power meant control. I thought the Empire's survival depended on dominating others. The humans taught me differently, not with words, with actions. They showed me what real strength looks like. It looks like restraint, like wisdom, like knowing when not to fight." The chamber erupted in conversation. Some delegates cheered, others argued. The Zaxarian military delegation looked uncomfortable. Change was never easy. Over the next weeks, the transformation began. Zaxarian military vessels began training alongside human ships, not to fight together, to understand each other. Ryan led the joint training exercises, teaching Zaxarian pilots that accuracy mattered more than firepower. Kate oversaw the integration of Zaxarian forces into the new Galactic Defense Initiative, not an army of conquest, a true peacekeeping force. Species that had once been enemies now worked together to protect shipping lanes and respond to disasters. Human technology began to be shared carefully and slowly, not weapons, not military secrets, but medical advances, agricultural techniques, energy systems, things that made life better. Vorthon kept his promise. He transformed the Empire into something new. Elections were held. Parliament was formed. The absolute power of the Emperor became the ceremonial position of counselor. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was change. One evening, Daniel received a message. Vorthon wanted to meet privately. They met in a garden on the Imperial Palace grounds. The sun was setting, painting the sky purple and gold. "I have question," Vorthon said, "that day in the council chamber when I declared war. Why did you laugh?" Daniel smiled. "I told you I was reading about my daughter's baseball game, but why did that make you laugh? Your species was being threatened with extinction because Lucy's team won, because she hit a home run in the 9th inning, because I'd promised to take her for ice cream if they won, and I was reading the article thinking about chocolate versus strawberry." Daniel looked at Vorthon. "Your war declaration was important to you, but to me, it was an interruption of things that actually mattered. Your daughter matters more than war. My daughter matters more than anything. That's what 300 years taught us. That's what billions of deaths taught us. Things that matter aren't empires or conquest or power. They're the small moments, the games, the ice cream, the time spent with people we love." Voron was quiet for a moment. "We never had that perspective. We were always focused on expansion, on glory, on history. History is important, but it's not as important as the future, and the future is built by people who care more about their children's happiness than their own glory." They stood in silence, watching the sun set. Two leaders from different worlds, different species, different paths, but in that moment they understood each other. A week later, Daniel returned to Earth. With his family, he took Lucy to that baseball game he'd been reading about. They sat in the stands, eating hot dogs and cheering. Above them, ships from a dozen different species crossed the sky. And formation, human vessels flying next to Zaxarian ones, former enemies now Partners, Lucy looked up at the ships. Dad, why are there so many different ships? Because we made new friends. Daniel said, we showed them that there's a better way to live than fighting all the time. How did you do that? Daniel pulled out his newspaper, the same one he'd carried to the council chamber and the throne room. He'd kept it all this time. The pages were worn now, but the words were still clear. I showed them this, he said. I showed them that I cared more about your baseball game than their war, and that confused them so much that they had to stop and think, and once they started thinking instead of fighting, everything changed. That's pretty smart, Lucy said. Your mom's idea, Daniel admitted. She told me to bring something that mattered, something real, not a weapon, not a threat, just something true. Above them, the New Jersey passed by on patrol. Next to it flew a Zaxarian cruiser, the same model that had been part of the fleet that came to destroy Earth. Now it was part of the defense force, protecting the very world it had come to attack. Kate Morrison was aboard the New Jersey, reviewing reports. The integration was going well, better than expected. Some conflicts, of course, some misunderstandings, but nothing that couldn't be solved with patience and good faith. Ryan stopped by her office. Admiral, thought you'd want to know the Zaxarian pilots are actually pretty good once they stop trying to overpower everything and started thinking tactically. Good teachers, Kate said, good students. That's all it takes. Think this will last the peace. Kate looked out at the stars. I think we have a chance, not a guarantee, but a chance, and that's more than we had 3 months ago. Back on the baseball field, Lucy hit another home run. The crowd cheered. Daniel cheered louder than anyone. And somewhere in the stands, a Zaxarian diplomat who was visiting Earth to learn about human culture watched in confusion as thousands of people celebrated a child hitting a ball with a stick. But by the end of the game, he was cheering too. Not because he understood baseball, because he understood joy, and that was something the Empire had forgotten in its 3,000 years of conquest. As the stars came out and the stadium lights turned on, the galaxy continued to turn. Empires rose and fell, species learned and grew, mistakes were made and corrected, but in one small corner of space, on a blue and green planet that was once nearly destroyed, people played games and ate ice cream and lived their lives in peace. And that, Daniel thought as he bought Lucy her victory. Ice cream was worth more than all the empires in the galaxy. The war that never really happened had ended. The peace that might actually last had begun, and somewhere in a hidden system, humanity's real cities continued their daily life, proud of the volunteers who had shown the galaxy that strength without wisdom was just violence, but wisdom with strength could change everything. The newspaper headline, preserved now in a museum, read, when giants pick fights, sometimes they should check who they're fighting first. Underneath it, someone had written, or better yet, don't pick fights at all.